Okay, in the meantime, some African presidents and private sector players have been meeting in Cape Verde discussing new ways to finance Africa's post-COVID-19 recovery and accelerate its development. The African Economic Conference 2021, which started on Thursday, has the theme Financing Africa's Post-COVID-19 Development, and it's organized by the United Nations Development Programme, the African Development Bank, and the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa. Now, let's cross over now to the event to have a feel of some of the conversations there. And I'm being joined by the Chief Economist, Regional Bureau for Africa at UNDP, Dr. Raymond Gilpin. Thank you very much, Dr. Gilpin, for joining us on the program.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
So how does vaccination rate influence development financing for African countries?
Thank you. This is an excellent question. The new Omicron virus lays bare a reality that Africa has been anticipating for quite a while. The fact that vaccine availability, particularly across the continent, has been such a problem, and only less than 10% of eligible Africans have been vaccinated, has had a very dampening effect both on economic growth and on economic development prospects across African countries. This downturn has also had a negative impact on foreign direct investment flows, as well as both remittances and portfolio investments. And the bottom line is that the critical investments that Africa needs at this point, not just to get over the impacts of COVID-19, but to build forward smarter, stronger, and more sustainably, have been constrained.
Now, Africa has always had a higher risk profile. Did the pandemic really make it worse? Is there any way this inequality could be reduced?
Well, that's a debatable concept, actually, whether or not Africa really has a higher risk profile, or whether risk in Africa is not being priced properly. There's quite a lot of research that shows that understanding risk in Africa is something that has not been really explored, and because of that, investments in Africa, borrowing by African entities and African countries is a lot more expensive than elsewhere. And so I think that we need to dial it back a little bit and better understand the risk profile. But be that as it may, as in any investment destination, there is an element of risk on the African continent. And the thing that we are learning from COVID-19 is that if we do not have a global approach to vaccinations, global approach to recovery, and then we have a problem in which the risk just gets particularly worse. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And this is why here at the African Economics Conference, we're exploring innovative ways to think about how to attract the resources necessary to allow African countries, African companies, and African households to better prepare for the future.
Okay, now how can African countries or leaders apply the suggestions being made at the conference to improve their GDPs or their economies? Are the suggestions practicable enough?
That's an excellent question, because normally when you have academic leaning conferences like the African Economics Conference, we think about these big ideas, complex macroeconomic modeling, and also very, very dense data. Here at the AEC, we have brought together the thinkers, people who are working on these evidence-driven solutions. We've brought to also have leaders. We've had heads of state, heads of government, and we've had the private sector leaders. We have a youth panel, and we have broad a range of representation. What does this do? It enables us to interrogate a lot of the challenging scenarios we're putting on the table, are they practicable? Do they really relate to Africa's challenges today and the emerging challenges for tomorrow and the years ahead? How does all of this get us on board to meet not just the Sustainable Development Goals of 2030, but also the African Union's Agenda 2063? It's very important, and one of the things that we are emphasizing here is that there is a sense of urgency. We do not have the luxury of time. And so we are putting together proposals that look at how we do development differently. For 60 years, we've been doing development one way, and it hasn't taken us very far. Between 1990 and 2020, $1.3 trillion worth of aid came to the African continent. Over that same time, per capita income increased by only $350. The proposition we are putting on the table is, how do we harness not just development aid, but mechanisms to enhance domestic resource mobilization, ways to involve private capital flows, the $100 billion worth of remittance flows that come into Africa, how do we repurpose those to help fund development? And then also taking a look at the reserves of African institutions, banking institutions, sovereign wealth funds, pensions, savings of African diaspora. How do we redirect those to help finance the vast and complicated challenges that the continent faces? And we do believe, and we have seen through not just our plenary conversations, but a lot of side meetings, we are seeing pathways that are pointing towards ways to do this better and more effectively in the African continent. And one example of this will, of course, be the Africa Continental Free Trade Area Arrangements, which allows African countries not just to trade amongst each other, but to collectively, in partnership with the business community, both formal and non-formal, to expand the size of the African market to about $2.5 trillion in a few years.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Gilpin. Let's just hope that this conference provides an answer to some of those questions that you have raised there. Thank you. We do appreciate your time, and have a wonderful deliberation there.
Thank you very much.